بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Ayatummah Mutahhari, after discussing the main issue about i'adatul ma'dum, now starts mentioning arguments that Hakim Sabzewari has briefly referred to. The first argument is explained in this poem. فَإِنَّهُ عَلَى جوازها حتم في الشخص تجویز تخلل العدم or تجویز تخلل العدم. فَإِنَّهُ عَلَى جوازها حتم. If we say it's hatama, if we say hatmun, then with adam a little bit would not match. Hatm is noun, hatama is the verb for it. According to possibility of i'adatul ma'dum, if we say it's jaiz, i'adatul ma'dum is jaiz. Haji says there is an unacceptable consequence for that. What is the unacceptable consequence for jawazu i'adatul ma'dum? Is تجویز تخلل العدم في الشخص. في الشخص تجویز تخلل العدم is تجویز تخلل العدم في الشخص. It means that we can then allow, and we must accept this, that between something and itself non-existence can occur. He says, Ayatummah Mutahhari says, for example, between Sa'di and Hafiz, there are two famous poets. They existed in different times. Between them, there is a gap. Sa'di and Hafiz. There's a gap between them. There is a time that Sa'di was not there, Hafiz was not there. There's a gap. Can we allow the same thing about one person, about Sa'di himself, and say Sa'di was living for example, 50 years, then finished, then again Sa'di is there after 10 years, so in the year 60th, again he is there, and said the same Sa'di. Can Adam occur inside the same continued reality? No. Adam, even if it is, for example, with the time, etc., cannot create any separation inside the same thing. Zaman, when comes, it means that we are dealing with another thing. You cannot say it's the same thing. This is one argument. The second argument, which Ayatummah Mutahhari says is clearer and is actually according to asalatul wujud, primordiality of existence, is focusing on huwiyah, on the identity of something. And Khaja Rahmatullah alayh explains it in this couplet. وَجَازَ أَنْ يُوجَدَ مَا يُمَاثِلُهُ مستأنفا وسلب ميز يبطله. If i'adatul ma'dum was possible, then ijadul mumathil is also possible. You can altogether create something similar, from every aspect similar. Then you have al-ma'dumul mu'ad and al-mumathilul mujad alladhi wujada. What is the difference between the two? Both of them have come to the existence, and from every aspect they are similar. Philosophers have no difficulty with saying that we can do ijadul mumathil at the same time or later. But they say because these are the two separate things. But you say i'adatul ma'dum is possible, ijadul mumathil is also possible. Then what is the difference between mu'ad and mumathil? Can you say mu'ad and mumathil are the same? Can I say to mumathil it is mu'ad? It is created for the first time. Can I say to mu'ad it is mumathil only? Then why you are calling it mu'ad? So this is the poem, but let us see what details Ayatummah Mutahhari has here for us. He says this argument is based on asalatul wujud. Asalatul wujud directly deals with the huwiyya, ma bihi shay huwa huwa, the thing that makes something something. He says, if you have a pen, for example, I have a pen in my hand. If this pen is taken from me, like the example of note that we had in the previous session, if this pen is taken from me, it's possible that the same pen is given to me. It's possible that another pen, for example, this pen is given to me, something, and suppose it's also blue, for example, to make it more similar, another pen is given to me, or something different. For example, a pencil is given to me, or nothing is given to me. There are different options. There is a reality that we can, based on that, say the same pen was given or not the same pen, a similar one or something different. There's a nafsul amr, if you want to make it, more philosophical, that we can check. If someone says it is the same pen or not, we can check. Some people who were not familiar with this idea of nafsul amr, etc., they thought we can say that mahiya exists anyway. Mahiya is separate from first being, first existence or second existence, etc. And as long as mahiya is the same, it's the same thing. This first, for example, pen and the second pen, in our example, and also in i'adatul ma'dum, if the first pen existed, then it stopped, and then the second pen created, it says the same. Why? Because it's a mahiya. But we say that mahiya is only in mind, and mahiya cannot be the reason for ta'ayyun, for tashakhus, for huwiyya. Mahiya is general. Tashakhus is because of wujud. when something is created for the first time and something is created for the second time, the first act of creation and the second act of creation are different. The first ijad means to initiate, to give existence, and the second one are different. And therefore the first wujud and the second are different. Ayatummah Mutahhari says in Usul Falsafe wa Ravish Realism, we have proved the philosopher's idea that wujud and ijad are the same. Like creation. Creation is not different from what is created, from the creature. Allah creates. What does it mean He creates? It means He gives existence to creation. Wujud and ijad are the same. You remember in the formula that we had in the house, those who were there in London, we used to repeat this formula. الماهية أمكنت فاحتاجت فأوجبت فوجبت فأوجدت فوجدت. أوجبت فوجبت. إيجاب and وجوب. Or أوجدت فوجدت. إيجاد and وجود. They come together. Yes, in mind we can a little bit distinguish between them. From حيثية is different, but there is one thing. Act of creating is not separate from what is being created. Act of giving existence is not separated from being which is given. So you cannot say that هوية of what is given existence بالإيجاد الأول is the same as هوية of the one which is given existence بالإيجاد الثاني. إيجاد الثاني is different from إيجاد الأول. Therefore, the beings are also different. This is why Khaja refutes the idea of i'adatul ma'dum by saying that they don't distinguish between mumathil and mu'ad. Mumathil is not a problem, we accept. We can have mumathil at the same time, we can have mumathil in different time, we can have mumathil the same place, another place, no problem. But mu'ad means something which is not just mumathil. You say the same thing but in another time. How can it be? Then what would be the distinction and maze between mumathil and mu'ad? Something which is created for the first time and something which is repeated in the sense that it's brought to existence. The third argument, he says, suppose you move your hand in a horizontal way from right to the left. From right to the left. This motion has taken maybe 3 seconds. It starts at a time and goes on and then ends. Okay. Zaman or time is part of this motion. Motion, as you remember, is التغير التدريجي من القوة إلى الفعل, gradual change from potentiality to actuality. If it is daf'i, it's kawn fasad. So in haraka we have gradual process and therefore we have time. Time is part of this process, part of this haraka. You cannot separate haraka and time from each other. Now, if this time which is expiring is part of this haraka, so it means that somehow this haraka is also expiring. If another time comes and we bring a similar haraka, Maybe it takes the same duration. Again, you say 3 seconds. But these 3 seconds is different from the first 3 seconds, and therefore this haraka is different from that haraka. Zaman cannot be renewed. Please remember, every zaman, every piece of time, every portion of time is unique. They can never be repeated. They can never be brought back. So this is the third argument. As we said, it is badihi. Sometimes maybe these arguments actually make it more complicated. But just for someone, if they have some issue and they don't accept this, then we have to bring these arguments. Otherwise, in itself, it's very clear that the first thing and the second thing cannot be the same if there is a gap. If it continues for 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, continuation of the same being keeps Hawiyya the same. Therefore, if someone committed a crime 50 years ago, still, if they find him, they may bring him to the court. So they say the same person. But if that person 20 years ago finished, and another person is created similar to that person from every aspect, looks like cloned him, very similar. But again, it's this different person, and we cannot bring this person to the court because of what the first person did and say, they look very similar, they look very identical. They are not the same. It's not the same Hawiyya. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we managed to finish the discussion about i'adatul ma'dum bi'aynih, and we said i'adatul ma'dum bi'aynih. First of all, it's not something that we need in order to explain resurrection. Resurrection is not a matter of i'adatul ma'dum. Secondly, this idea is wrong. It's not possible to bring exactly the same thing back. When something finishes, it finishes. And whenever something is created, it's always new. If something is given existence, it's a new thing. It's not the same thing that existed before. Ibn Sina says this is badihi, but still the philosophers mention some arguments, and we mentioned 3 arguments here. Inshallah, in the next session, we go to 16th point, and that is about the criterion for truth of propositions. Although this discussion is related to the discussion of knowledge, and it's also related to epistemology, theory of knowledge, but also it's related to the discussion about existence somehow, because we have to understand different types of realities and different types of truths based on that, so that we know how to evaluate a proposition. We have to see to what reality this is referring to, and then to see how we can evaluate it. And here also a discussion about the nafsul amr comes, which is very important discussion. What is nafsul amr? Is nafsul amr the same thing for everything, or nafsul amr of things which have mahiyya is different? These are things that inshallah we discuss in the next session. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.